Okay. Is it Probst here? Probst is not here. All right. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to House Economic Matters. Today's Thursday, February 8th. We have 4 bills, 9 oral witnesses. First up on the list, and I see him, is House Bill 155, Delegate Lewis. Do you have a panel? Perfect. This is the best type of bill.
All right, there it goes. Okay. For the record, Delegate Jazz Lewis, I stand before you all today in favor of House Bill 155. Thank you to Chair Wilson, Vice Chair Crosby, and the members of the Economic Matters Committee for this opportunity to present the bill on the creation of a carbon capture opportunity program under the Maryland Energy Administration. This legislation signals our great state's commitment to playing a leading role in developing carbon management technology, recognizing that the field is rapidly evolving and we, as a state research powerhouse, should have a significant say in shaping its trajectory. Let me be clear, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment in history. The state of Maryland and the federal government have invested in decarbonizing our society through scaling renewable energy use, expanding battery storage, and much more. We must ensure the transition to a clean net zero economy also supports good jobs. One of the proposals to do that, one supported by many climate groups and several industrial unions, is the investment and development of carbon management technology. With the passage of federal legislation, substantial resources have become available for carbon capture and management projects. One example is a $12 billion in funding provided by the federal infrastructure bill. Now more than ever, we have a unique opportunity to address the climate crisis while simultaneously fostering economic growth here in Maryland. These carbon management projects, although still evolving, have shown immense promise in reducing carbon emissions and creating quality jobs. The technology has the potential to collect emitted carbon from the air, as well as collect it via manufacturing processes as diverse as making beer or making automobiles. As a state that boasts some of the finest research institutions and forward-thinking industries, we should be at the forefront of this transformative technology. We have the potential to harness federal resources, drive innovation, and steer the course of carbon management's development. House Bill 155 seeks to position Maryland as a trailblazer in this field by establishing the Maryland Energy Administration as a critical ally. MEA, under this legislation, will provide invaluable assistance to organizations seeking federal grant funding for their carbon management endeavors. Additionally, MEA will offer technical support, ensuring these projects meet the necessary requirements for funding and successful implementation. The state of Maryland is home to several industries that have a significant carbon footprint in their manufacturing processes. One to note for the purposes of this bill is the process of creating concrete. Most concrete plants use either coal or natural gas in their production processes because they must heat the materials pulled from limestone to over 3,500 degrees in order to make what we know as cement. Currently, they must burn something to get that heat level. They can't heat water or steam or something. While the industry, and all heavy industry for that matter, are innovating and trying to lower their emissions, carbon capture is a great opportunity for them to lower their footprint. And this is a chance for Maryland-based plants such as Heidelberg Materials and Union Bridge in Carroll County, or the Wholesome Cement Plant in Hagerstown, Maryland, in Washington County to reduce their emissions and support our state in meeting its decarbonized goals. I'm specifically mentioning these two facilities because they are both organized by the United Steelworkers, also offering good wages to Maryland residents. By supporting industries that require carbon capture and management to lower their CO2 emissions, we can not only help the environment, but also assist working families. Furthermore, I'm pleased to share that we are actively working on an amendment to broaden the scope of the bill from carbon capture to the more inclusive carbon management language. With that, I urge the favorable support of House Bill 155, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Delegate. Seeing no questions, I don't see any other testimony on this bill. That concludes this bill hearing. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
You too. All right. Appropriations still is not here, so next we will go to Delegate Tavares on House Bill 518. You can start when ready.
Thank you. And I too walk alone.
Good luck.
Thank you, Chair Wilson, Vice Chair Crosby, and esteemed committee members. And it is an honor to be before you all once again. I'm here to ask for your favorable report on HB 518, Performance-Based Rate Making Framework, PBR for short. While I understand that some efforts have been done and others are being considered that are in the spirit of this bill makes a significant stride towards modernizing our state's approach to utility management by creating a commission that studies this issue as we take a look at what other states and other nations are doing. In an era where sustainability and reliability are paramount, Maryland's move to strive towards a more cost-effective PBR system aligns with the practices of 19 states and Washington, D.C., which have already explored or implemented similar frameworks. The success of these models in other regions, notably Illinois and Hawaii, demonstrates the potential for stable customer bills, reduced outages, and encouragement for grid modernization. In Maryland, where the average monthly electricity expenditure is $204, the adoption of this model could herald a new era of efficiency and customer-focused service. These models shift the financial incentives of the state utility companies from revenue generated by most spending to revenue generated by utility services with the highest reliability, efficiency, and green energy usage. PBR models are not just theoretical concepts. They have shown tangible benefits were implemented domestically and internationally. Since Illinois adopted a model, there has been a remarkable reduction in outages by 50%, while customers' bills have remained stable. This bill encourages utilities in Maryland to innovate and modernize the grid, addressing the aging infrastructure issues that plagues much of the United States. Let us not forget what happened in Texas recently. The model promotes enhanced service quality, efficiency, and customer satisfaction, all critical factor in today's utility market. The adoption of PBR is about ensuring our state's energy infrastructure is sustainable, reliable, and meets the need of its customers. This bill represents a significant step towards a future where utility companies are rewarded not for their spending, but for their performance in delivering essential services. It aligns with the state's utility sector with the overarching goals of environmental stewardship, stability, and customer satisfaction. So in closing, I ask this esteemed committee for your favorable report on HB 518. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Delegate. And seeing no questions, nor panel, or no further witnesses, that concludes this bill hearing. Next, we will go to House Bill 554, which will now be the first of two bills for Delegate Charkoudian. Yep, bring them all up.
Everyone's here for me. God. The rest of them are just here for the entertainment. That's right. Mr. Chair, colleagues, for the record, Delegate Lori Charkoudian asking for a favorable report on House Bill 554. This bill is in some ways a very simple bill. 2 years ago, we passed a bill that required prevailing wage on all underground utility work. This bill now strikes underground, and so it requires prevailing wage on all utility work. In a lot of ways, this is just about consistency. There's not a really good reason to have prevailing wage on half the utility work and not the other half. But going back to the reason to have prevailing wage on utility work in general is that I think there's sort of two things that I would highlight. The first is that this is really crucial infrastructure work, even though our utilities are they're monopoly utilities, they're privately owned in some cases, they're cooperatively owned in other cases, but they have a franchise and their job is to operate in the public interest. They're heavily regulated, so it's not the same as another sort of private company. There's a lot that we do differently in terms of what we regulate and require of utilities than other industries. And within that context, it's a crucial piece of infrastructure. I think if we think about what happens when the grid goes out, if we think about what happens if the work isn't done with the highest quality, if we think about the safety implications for this work, we want to make sure that we have the best contractors and the best employees doing this work. And prevailing wage is one of the ways to do that. But the other thing is that we are all required to pay into utility rates and to pay into this infrastructure. And so like when we have state projects that we're all required to pay into through taxes, we want to make sure that that investment is building a strong middle class. And one of the ways to make sure that it's building a strong middle class as opposed to a race to the bottom is to require prevailing wage of the contractors who are subcontracted to do this. So what you'll hear about is, of course, some of the work is done by in-house workers, and we'll hear from them and why this is important for them, because they're going to have to come and clean up the mess if it's not done well. And we'll also hear from some of the people who do the contractual work and why this is important. I think it's worth noting that, and they'll talk more about this. The amount that's paid to the contractors is essentially the same, whether or not the workers are getting prevailing wage. So it's not expected to change in terms of the price of the contracts. But the question is, are we going to use these prices that we're paying to build a strong middle class for workers or not? And this gives us a chance to do that. I will pass it on to Michael. And I look forward to taking questions after my panel's done. You need that. Yeah, you're talking to that. Yeah.
All right.
It's his first time here, so please be nice.
Dear Chair Wilson, Vice Chair Crosby, and members of the Economic Committee, I am Michael Powers, Safety Coordinator, IBEW, Local 70 in Forestville, Maryland. I stand as a voice of 1,900 essential workers. Local Union 70's members tirelessly build, service, and maintain critical power grid here in Maryland. This bill, which mandates prevailing wage for investor-owned utility of construction, electrical transmission lines and facilities, is paramount for the welfare of our dedicated workers, their families, and the communities we serve. Prevailing wage ensures fair compensation, fostering economic stability, and elevating the standard of living for those powering our nation. I firmly believe that HB 554 will foster the creation and maintenance of jobs in this sector, ensuring fair competition for skilled laborers involved. Prevailing wage not only supports workers and their families, but also contribute to the overall growth and prosperity of our communities. By enforcing this bill, we pave the way for job opportunities that promote skill development, efficiency, and safety. I believe favorably in this report is essential. A favorable judgment in this report is essential for the advancement of our workforce and continued progress in our community. A couple strong points I want to hit on: fair competition, fair compensation for skilled labor, establishing a minimum wage rate for workers who are less likely to be underpaid, promoting economic stability for laborers and their families. Quality and safety standards are promoted. Reasonably compensated workers are more likely to be motivated and committed to their work, leading to higher productivity and better outcomes. Higher wages can attract skilled and experienced workers, contribute to a safer work environment, and reducing the likelihood of accidents. Its local impact.
You can finish the sentence.
Yeah, real quick. I got to hit on this. Brandon Shores is being set to shut down. It's going to be a $700 million transmission project that's coming to Maryland. With the passage of this bill, you could assure that much of that money will stay in Maryland and benefit Maryland, by making it more competitive, that the contractor coming in doing that $700 million transmission project will be Marylanders.
You want to go ahead?
Dear Chair and members of the House Economic Matters Committee, my name is William Yule. I'm the Director for the Maryland chapter of the National Electrical Contractors Association. On behalf of my chapter and that of Washington, D.C. chapter, I'm here today to express our strong support of House Bill 554. Maryland and Washington, D.C. NECA represents a combined 200 electrical contractors that employ well over 12,000 electrical workers, of which over 2,000 are working apprentices. NECA contractors employ highly skilled electricians and provide those employees with high value wages, family medical care, retirement plans, and continuing education through workforce development and apprenticeship training programs. Firstly, NECA strongly supports House Bill 554 because it promotes contractors that pay good wages and benefits to their employees. Without this legislation, any investor-owned gas or electric utilities and infrastructure projects will be open to contractors whose only goal is to increase profits. Secondly, but just as important, House Bill 554 promotes contractors that are dedicated to training the next generation of skilled workers through registered apprenticeship. Without prevailing wage standards, we compromise the state's ambition of having its residents learn a skilled trade under the tutelage of a qualified and experienced journey person. House Bill 554 is beneficial for the members of NECA and the hardworking men and women of the electrical and pipe fitting trades, but more importantly, it's essential for the future growth and development of both industries. By requiring that all work involving gas or electric utilities above ground and underground be paid prevailing wages, the state of Maryland is reinforcing their commitment to providing high value wages to its residents, promotes contractors, both union and non-union, that are dedicated to educating the next generation of tradespeople through registered apprenticeships, and providing the end user with best value construction. For these reasons, NECA supports House Bill 554 and asks for a favorable report.
You can take a breath now.
Thank you. I had to get under 2 minutes, so I was like, quick.
Good job.
Go ahead, sir.
Of course. First, I'd like to thank Chair Wilson, Vice Chair Crosby, and the members of this Economic Matters Committee. My name is Brian Swilliger. I represent IBW Local 410. Which is the sole representative of over 1,400 Baltimore gas and electric employees. We're here today to show our support for House Bill 554. I'm here to underscore the paramount importance and full support of House Bill 554. House Bill 554 creates an even playing field for all contractors, not just union contractors, to one, win bids that can be undercut by contractors who are simply just trying to pay below average wages and below average benefits. Public utility contracts outlined in this bill should not be handed out to bad actors who only outbid their competition by paying lower wages and offer below benefits. These projects are crucial for Maryland's ability to move forward with electrification. They should be awarded to contractors based on safety and productivity, not those who can pay the lowest hourly rate. If the state truly wants to push forward with electrification, we collectively have a lot of work to do. As one of the witnesses today mentioned about Brandon Shores. Brandon Shores is closing down. We know this. We passed a bill to dedicate $795 million to run a transmission line from Pennsylvania down into Maryland. Who's going to do that work? My members can't. We don't have enough members at BG to do that work. That bill, that contract is going to be bidded out to the contractors. Our contractors here in the state of Maryland, for the most part, already pay prevailing wages. What we're trying to do with this bill is keep bad actors from coming into the state of Maryland. Those wages that they come in and take, they're just going to take out of the state. Those tax dollars, the revenue, doesn't stay here in the state of Maryland. And that's why we're in full support of House Bill 554.
Quick question. Is the bill prospective or would it have an impact on existing contracts?
It is going forward. You know what it's going forward. It's the exact same bill that we passed 2 years ago. So
Yep.
however that worked out is what this does. It just takes out underground. So like we've already operationalized this. It just removes underground.
Okay.
So it's my understanding is it's forward because that's what happened when we last did the.
Okay, Delegate Adams.
Okay, I'll just go further on that same question. So on these prevailing wage determinations, at bid date or however this works, that's when the wage scale is presented to the prospective bidders and it applies to a certain contract. So, I guess my question really goes to, in your bill, once it passes, I assume we're talking about future contracts, not ones that are already in place.
Yeah, that's my understanding of how,
That's okay. I mean, if that's your understanding, then I'm done asking questions because it's really a legislative intent conversation.
it is my understanding. And I think we can find out what happened when we passed this bill 2 years ago for underground. And if there was a problem with that, we can, adjust it, but
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Delegate Fisher.
Thank you. So I'm just curious, this is for underground and above ground utilities, right? When you,
We already passed it for underground
Right.
2 years ago. This
Yeah.
just removes underground, so it's for everything.
and so there aren't enough people to do the work in Maryland. That's what I heard testimony.
No, there are.
Okay. So then the opposition is that you don't want people coming from outside the state into the state to do the work unless they pay prevailing wage.
Right. So
What
we're
is-
trying not to create a sort of race to the bottom, bring in folks from out of state or from wherever paying below the
What
prevailing
is
wage.
the
Yeah.
prevailing wage now?
For this work, I'm not actually sure. Do you guys know what that? We can,
Total package. I mean, no one knows what it is.
no, we can find out for you.
So there's a prevailing wage bill and no one knows what the prevailing wage is.
Well, the
Okay.
prevailing wage
So-
is established by trade by the, can I just clarify? So there is what the prevailing wage is it's established in this bill by the Commissioner of Labor and Industry under Title 17, Subtitle 2. So it's not like it's a fixed thing that it's always going to be the same. So
But
at
it's
any given
fixed-
time,
It's fixed now.
right this minute, there's a price and it's
That's-
different in different
And
parts
that
of
was
the,
that was my question.
and it's different in different parts of the state as well.
So if you have a fixed wage, then how do you have competitive bidding? Because by definition, if wages are fixed, why bid anything out? Because then you would just have, everybody would be the same price. right?
Do you want to talk about that as a contractor? What's different in?
Well, the important thing is that we're making sure that the individuals working on these projects are the highest trained, highest skilled, educated individuals specific to their trade. We also want to make sure that we're going, again, hiring apprentices. The big push right now in the state of Maryland is to make sure that all people, especially younger people that are looking for opportunities, have these situations where they can go into registered apprenticeships. Contractors that don't follow the prevailing wage can hire people at lower cost tiers so that they can profitize more at the expense of their employees, sir.
So if I trench myself, if I do trenching myself on one of my cell sites, since that's what I do for a living, do I have to pay myself prevailing wage?
Are you doing the work, sir?
Yeah, that's what I just said.
What well, I mean, if it's you actually using the work, I would imagine with your tools, and I would say, yes, you'd have to pay yourself the prevailing wage.
But you don't know what prevailing wage is for that.
Well, I mean, again, it all depends on each specific trade and it changes annually based off of, employers, both non-union and unions submitting their forms. And so it changes every year. So
So the reason why I'm asking the questions is because if you have fixed wages across all industries, then really by definition, and this is perfectly reasonable what I'm suggesting here, because it does make sense.
Mhm.
There really is no bidding involved because everybody's the same.
I think we're trying to make sure, I'm sorry to interrupt, sir. I think the most important thing is we're talking about best value, not best price. We want to make sure that we have.
All I hear here is all I hear is you don't want best price, you want highest paid. And highest paid would be fixed by definition from everybody.
I don't think it's
So-
highest paid. It's
So that's-
it's a floor, right? And it creates a floor and then the bids are based
I
on,
think it's price fixing. I mean, that's
Well-
really what this is. I mean,
No.
because it's such hyper statism that it's price fixing.
May I
And-
address that?
Yeah, of
No,
course, yeah.
we're promoting, competitive bidding, 100%. This promotes income equity. It reduces income inequity. A prevailing wage contributes to reducing the inequity. So it's just more to the worker. It's not raising the overall bid. It's more to.
If it's more to the
The
worker,
middle
then it's
class
more to the person paying the bill. So, and that's what, and I know that, I appreciate the chairman's latitude because this is an important issue. There are some
agree.
of us that are actually in this business that understand it. And what I'm hearing is like, well, Mark, if you go get some bids for utility connection to a cell site, and we have this chart of what people can pay and not pay, then basically, why would I bother getting bids? It kind of is pointless. And so effectively what it is it's basically, you know, it's kind of like price socialism. It's like price fixing. It really is. And that is what your bill is doing. I'm just telling you, it's doing that because everybody, either you're going to have no one want to get into the business to do it, or you're going to just have one big company and they're going to do everything.
Well, I think what we have is how many folks are in NECA in Maryland?
And for our chapter, 75, and through Washington DC, about 125, 130. So, I mean,
So there's not one big company.
well, we have both. I represent small contractors that are one-man shops out of their basement. I also represent companies that employ thousands of electricians. So everything in between, sir.
So I think that what we see is that even amongst those who already pay prevailing wage, like they already pay prevailing wage regardless of what the bid structure is, and there's still a range of companies of all different sizes. So like that hasn't been the case.
So then why is the bill necessary if you already have that?
Because that's 100 whatnot companies, but there's other companies out there
I
that,
suggest to you that you're gonna have less companies, but I mean, I'm concerned about that. I am.
okay,
You know,
appreciate your
because-
concern.
Because, yeah, but thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, we'll have more debate during the voting session. Delegate Pippy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think I get the intent of the bill. I think it kind of goes without being said, but I do have a question, and based on the testimony of some of the panelists. So I feel like your argument is why this is necessary because there's issues of quality in the type of work. But yet this is not a bill about licensing requirements or requirements for the type of workers that you can have. We see a lot of those bills, for example. You know, if you're concerned in a particular industry that people are not, you know, we heard a bill about we need licensing for eyelashes yesterday of all things. So if the concern is quality, why aren't you putting in a bill retiring the type of quality of the individual doing the work above or below ground? Why are, to my colleague's point down, this is a bill about pay me more. That's straight up what this is. And there could be merits to that, but that's what this is. So explain to me, why aren't we addressing the quality component?
Well, there are bills out there that are addressing that. But I mean,
No.
for
We're
instance,
talking about this bill.
I'm talking about bills that have been passed, like Senator Corey McRae passed a bill about electricians, about making sure you have journeyman licensing. That's actually been in place, and there's current, like, the only problem is enforcement. There are journeymen out there, technically journeymen, that are doing electrical work that don't have licensing. And the problem is, what do we do to try to stop individuals that claim to be electricians but don't have the education?
Hold on. See, but here's the problem with your argument, is that you're asserting that if we don't pay a prevailing wage, the people are not qualified to work on these types of jobs. So what I want to hear from you is that connection, because that's the argument I keep hearing. We got to do this because the quality. But like, you could put in a bill that increases the requirements for the type of workers to be on it, not about the pay, but about the licensing, the education, the experience, all those things. Maybe there's more merit to that. Maybe that's a real thing, but that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
That's a real question. So I'm hoping
Yeah,
to
let
hear.
me give it a shot. So I think there's two things that I would say about that. First of all, I think I was clear that I have two goals with this bill. One is related to quality, but another one is related to building a strong middle class. So I'm absolutely about, if we're going to be paying for big infrastructure projects, which we are 800 million in a couple minutes about Brandon Shores, several million more as we build more data centers. Like, we're putting a ton of money into this. If we're doing that, let's build a strong middle class of Marylanders. I mean, we can't restrict it to Marylanders, there are interstate commerce clauses, but this will help make sure we're not bringing in low wage workers from other states, because we're, you know, so you have the competition here in Maryland. So that's one really significant piece of what this bill is doing. The second really significant piece of what this bill is doing is, if you look at the economic literature on prevailing wage, there's a range of findings in terms of, does it increase the cost or not? There's lots of findings in the published literature that talks about it not increasing the cost, and in fact, saving money, because you have more things done on time, under budget, on the original budget, those kinds of things. And I'm happy to send you the literature on that if you're interested. And that you're less likely to have not only cost overruns, but having to redo the work because of problematic practices. So that sort of is found in the literature. So I don't disagree with you that there's other bills that we have passed and we should pass and we should continue to pass that are about licensing, that are about ratios of apprenticeship to journeymen, that are about making sure we have enforcement of those ratios and of licensing and all that stuff. That's all really important. This bill isn't pretending to be that, but this bill is recognizing that while we're building a strong middle class with the massive investments we're making in electrical infrastructure, we also have these other benefits that the economic literature shows come along with when we pay prevailing wage.
Thank you.
Thank you. I actually was just, I was just going to leave this, but I just wanted to make sure that I am very clear on prevailing wage. I think I am, but I just want to make sure that I am clear. If, let's just say that we have a project, two projects, one in, I don't know, summer in the far western part of the state and one in the southernmost part of the state. And basically the cost of living is different in both areas. The same jobs, they require the same skill set for the individuals working there. So the prevailing wage in one part of the state is going to be different than what's in the other part of the state. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, that in different regions of the state, the contractors have to send in every year what they're paying. And then based on what the contractors are paying, the Department of Labor under this code that I just read looks at that. I couldn't tell you what the regions are off the top of my head, but we could find out in those regions and says then prevailing wage for this region of the state is XYZ for this year.
So then, and let's throw a third one in the central part of the state. I'll say the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, the wage may be higher than both of those. The cost of living, which means that the prevailing wage would be higher. So when you start to do, when you start to bid out contracts, bid out for projects, those that may be, I'm gonna say the western part of the state because you've got West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio over there. What it is that you're trying to say is that whatever that wage is for that area, they can't, a company could not, well, when they're bidding, they have to make sure that wherever they're coming from, that they are paying that wage.
That's right.
That's what this bill is saying.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You basically answered or asked my question, but you said you represent from 1 to 1,000-man firms. Can you get us that information on the bids and contracts that go to those 1-man firms versus those 1,000-man firms? Because we just heard some information and some talk about proportionality and equity. So I'd be very interested to see what that actually looks like on the ground. So thank you very much.
Yeah, just a fast one. When you're starting to look at these things and you talk about prevailing wage, we're bidding on a contract. If I have a company and let's say I have the 10 best electricians on the planet Earth, they've been through every training class in the world, but all I have is 10 people. And you have a company that has 2,000 people. The economies of scale, when I'm bidding that project, the material then is the only difference in how we purchase that. What's protecting my company if I have to pay prevailing wage? And we all work under that, but what's protecting my company in that scenario?
I mean, do you want to talk about how 10-person firms are able to compete as well as 1,000-person firms?
Well, the thing is, obviously material is going to be typically the same price. I mean, we all know that if you buy bulk, you're going to get a cheaper price. I understand that. But the one thing about small contractors and the one thing we do at NECA, and I'm sure other trade associations, we work together jointly. There are situations where we need larger contractors. We'll work with smaller contractors because they might be specialized in that specific industry. I'll use an example. I have a contractor that's Glen Oak. They do electrical work, but they also do excavation, and they're very good at that. And we do have larger contractors that are not as privy about the excavation industry. And while they're doing electrical work, they hire them specifically because of that. And he's a 20-man shop. But I wouldn't, and can tell you for a fact that Free State Electric, who employs thousands of electricians, subs work out to them all the time.
But that doesn't address the problem. The problem is if you sub out, I'm not the contractor. I don't have the same opportunity to win that business as some big company does. But because I might be able to cut some price on my labor because I'm not having to pay that for whatever reason. But when I get in there to buy material, that's where I get separated greatly. And you're saying that we fix that. Well, you don't, because I don't typically want to be a subcontractor. And that's not what I'm doing. We're harming the small guy in favor of the big guy with this, because I have no room to work on those things. I cannot buy at the price point that a large company can buy.
But I think you're comparing these large projects, maybe smaller contractors couldn't even be able to touch it, whether it be
But
bonding or.
they may be. They
So
may
we're
be able
comparing
to do
apples to
that.
oranges.
But they may be able to do that. If that 10 people company, whatever I'm talking about, comes out and they sit down and say, I can bid on it, I can do the job. But because you're a big thousand, you can buy bulk material and you have it sitting there at half the cost of what I pay. I think we need to leave some room for the small guy to work on this. And this doesn't leave that. Thank you. Isn't that so?
So,
I'm done.
having bid on federal contracts as a small guy, right? And I buy plenty of material. A lot of times, I don't know what goes into purchasing some of this material, right? But that is part of the overall bid in the package. A lot of times, the money is to be made in the material. And so maybe the big guys can buy in bulk and get a lower quote unquote price point. But I think a lot of times the way it shakes out is when I'm bidding against them, they have so much overhead, et cetera. So their actual bid into the contract, if they can get 10 widgets for $10 each and it's $100, they'll bid in for 200. I may get 10 widgets for $11 and it costs me $110, but I can still bid at like $130 and I beat them by 70. Additionally, some of the suppliers oftentimes will get credit for working with a small business, veteran-owned, minority-owned, whatever. And so they will have price points within those bands that help me out be more competitive with the bigger guys. Does that apply in utilities? I don't know the answer to that. I'm legitimately asking.
I mean, you have people who could probably answer sitting behind us. I'm not sure if you want to bring
Well,
them up
they didn't
here, but-
sign up, so.
But we could ask them afterwards and get back to you. I think, Mr. Chair, that either it applies or doesn't, and this doesn't change that.
Right.
So we could bring a bill next year making it that apply. That's
No, I just think that there's so much more that goes into a contract and bidding a contract that you can beat out the big guys a lot of times if you're quicker, faster, more mobile, agile, et cetera. So like that's part of it. I got it, but that doesn't paint the entire picture. All right, Delegate Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to, I would be very interested in in the answer to that question, because in federal contracting, there are small business set-asides. And I don't think Maryland is set up to have small business set-asides, which kind of addresses a lot of the other concerns. So I would be interested to know the answer to that question. If Maryland has small business set-asides that would protect the smaller companies.
I will say that I am aware that the utilities have minority contractor goals. I don't know about small business set aside. I know that they have minority contractor goals, and I know that I've seen their presentations at the Public Service Commission and their progress on meeting those goals. So I know that's a piece of it. Whether there's besides that small business set asides as well, I don't know the answer to that, but we can ask them when we step out in the hallway.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I would want to see it fairness across, all small businesses. So thank you.
Hi, colleague, how are you? You did say, and I heard that you said that this passed out of our committee 2 years ago, and the only thing that you was striking is the underground utilities.
That's correct. Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I believe this concludes this hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You want me to stay up for this other one, or we're looking for?
We're still waiting on
Appropriations?
appropriations. Cool. Okay, so we're good to start it? Okay,
You
All
want
right.
to present this bill?
so
right.
we'll go to House Bill 660.
I got Jamie and Teresa here. You guys here? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, I am still Delegate Lorig Charkoudian. This time asking for a favor report on House Bill 660. This is this creates a revolving loan program for nonprofits to purchase green energy, clean energy, electric vehicle charging, and so on. What we have right now in the state of Maryland, Maryland Energy Administration has a number of programs that support We have programs that support green schools. We have programs that support small businesses. We have programs that support residential, but we don't have any programs that support nonprofits, and in particular, smaller nonprofits. And so the idea behind this bill is to create a revolving loan fund to support smaller nonprofits that are interested in getting clean energy equipment, solar panels, or EV chargers, and it's a loan program, not a grant program. So it creates this revolving loan, and the money comes back and then gets sent back out. You're going to hear from my panel in a second about why that's important. I do want to talk about the technicalities of the bill, though. One of the things that's really important about this bill in a tough budget year is that it is authorizes the program and then leaves it up to the governor or the General Assembly to allocate up to $5 million. It does not require $5 million. Furthermore, I've talked to MEA, and MEA originally had a fiscal note on the bill even before the authorization that it would cost $128,000. I asked them for some language in an amendment that would allow them basically to not set up the program until money is allocated. And so you have that amendment language has been sent to you. It's in the packet. And what they have said to me and what their testimony says is that if we adopt this amendment language, the bill will actually have no fiscal note. So it'll create this opportunity for the revolving loan fund, but it won't require any funds to be spent until money is available. So you might ask, then why would we bother to create the revolving loan fund? And the answer is there is a lot of federal money floating around right now and a lot of opportunities to apply for that federal money. And so by creating the revolving loan fund, even without spending any money yet until we have found that money, it sort of puts a marker out there that one of the things we'd like to do with the money, should there become federal money available or should the governor choose to allocate state money, one of the things we'd like to do is make sure nonprofits have access to this kind of revolving loan fund. So what this essentially does is it says yes to nonprofits also, yes to revolving loan funds, and with these amendments, it does it without any additional fiscal costs until that money is identified and found. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to my panel.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Teresa Hessler, and I'm here today representing Maryland nonprofits in support of House Bill 660. Last year, the Senate passed a version of this legislation, and we are here today asking that this committee helps to move this bill across the finish line this year. As is, nonprofits do not benefit from that much tax credits. And for the smaller nonprofits, it is even harder to benefit from current incentives. We know the economy is up and down, and unfortunately, after the pandemic, smaller nonprofits are experiencing an even greater financial strain in the sense that charitable contributions by individuals, which are most significant to the smaller, local, regional, community-based organizations, are not growing. In fact, these have declined as a proportion of overall giving and in real numbers the last 2 years. Now, more than ever, nonprofits should be encouraged and assisted to play a larger role in Maryland's important transition to green energy. Significant financial incentives already exist to promote the broad use of renewable energy resources by individuals or businesses. But because the tax code is being used as a vehicle for most of these incentives, they are not easily accessible to cash-strapped nonprofit organizations. Passing House Bill 660 would provide many charitable nonprofits the opportunity to make long-term investments in their buildings, further benefiting those they serve by taking advantage of the benefits of renewable energy sources, working together towards more sustainable communities and a more sustainable Maryland. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee, my name is Jamie DeMarco. I am the Maryland Director at the Chesapeake Climate Action Network. Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak. The good news is that solar is now the cheapest form of electricity available. It's the cheapest. That didn't happen by accident. That's because of the hard work of this committee and committees across the country like it that invested in solar when it came at a cost premium. It has now reached the point where it is the most affordable. And you don't need to take my word for it. You know, that's why 95% of the PJM queue is wind, solar, and batteries. People are building it because it is the cheapest. But you need to make an upfront investment in order to build it. And then as someone who works at a nonprofit, I can say a lot of nonprofits lack the sort of large sums of cash needed to make these investments. And in a high interest environment, the interest that you get can make or break whether or not that project on your roof is going to pencil and is going to sort of have real benefits for your project, your nonprofit, and be worth doing. This bill has the potential to make available zero interest capital to nonprofits to put solar on their roofs, which also has the benefit of building it on a rooftop, which we know it can be difficult to put solar on the ground where there are competing land use needs. And we know that when you put solar on a rooftop, it has the added benefit of not having to go through a substation to get to the need. And so that reduces the overall upgrades that we need to make to the grid. So this has terrific benefits for the nonprofits, for the grid, and for our climate goals. We urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Delegate Howard.
So you said that the economy has gotten a little bit worse and that there's high interest rates. Is that what you're kind of talking about for a second there?
Yes.
I think what I'm saying is you're saying the quiet part out loud under the current administration. Thank you. But also too, as far as the bill is concerned, what kind of material, what kind of things would we be purchasing? I mean, is this cars or what is this, like a fleet of vehicles for small profits? How does that disseminate down? I mean,
so let's go to the qualifying energy system means a system that generates electricity or usable thermal energy that is used to meet on-site demand, assist the state in meeting the environmental and greenhouse gas reduction goals under Title II, Subtitle 12 of the Environment Article.
So fleets of vehicles for
would not.
Workers.
Qualifying energy system generates electricity or usable thermal energy would not include fleets of vehicles for workers.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what kind of nonprofits are we talking about that would do this? Any specific that you have in mind? Because the legislation was brought forward obviously with some in mind.
I think that there is a section in here that tells MEA to prioritize smaller nonprofits. I think it could be houses of worship. I think it could be any sort of smaller, I think the goal was not to have a major hospital, for example, that is a nonprofit, that would have access to that kind of capital. So potentially smaller houses of worship or other small community centers that might own their own building and be able to put solar on, but wouldn't otherwise have access to the capital.
So why not just prioritize these instead of saying nonprofit? Why not just prioritize them to large rooftops like warehouses, where it would be a lot more efficient in a warehouse community than you would, smaller nonprofits where you have to do twice the work on one small roof after another.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the question because I think it gets to this bigger question about what is the best way to get the solar out there to meet our solar goals. And so there's a lot of conversation about land use. There's conversation about the value of getting it on everyone's roof as opposed to finding the larger warehouses. The truth is that even if we split it 50-50 between utility scale and rooftop, we still need a lot of rooftops. And so I think we, in terms of our climate goals, we want to maximize the rooftops that it can get on, especially given the competition for the land-based stuff.
I'm just suggesting that's probably not nonprofits. And I guess my concern is that.
Well, let me finish. Let me finish the thought. So I think that private companies like a warehouse would potentially have more access. We do have and a private company also would be able to get access to the 30% federal tax credit. So this is some tax credits they would be able to get access to. They potentially have access to and we have MEA already has programs that support commercial adoption.
So you're saying that the nonprofits, since they don't pay taxes, can't get the tax credit because they don't pay taxes?
That's part of it. I'm also saying that MEA already has a commercial programs that support commercial adoption and does not have programs that support nonprofit adoption.
Is there any means test for some of the nonprofits where there are these exorbitant salaries? Because a lot of these nonprofits, they pay their heads exorbitant salaries and they're really shells for other things.
Yeah. One of the things that I appreciate about you, Delegate Fisher, is how well you connect multiple issues that are facing us as a society. And I appreciate that because I like having big comprehensive bills. And next week, I will have a big comprehensive bill that gets at multiple issues and we can sort of connect it to all these other issues. In this case, I'm not trying to solve all those other issues, although I'm not saying that they're not important. This is trying to solve one very narrow issue, but I look forward to working with you to really get these more comprehensive bills where I can bring like 10 people to testify about it and we can solve all the problems of the world.
So I guess you were triggered a little bit there, but it is a sincere question.
No, it's a sincere answer.
Yeah.
It's a sincere answer. It's a totally sincere answer. I love comprehensive bills. This just doesn't happen to be one of them.
It's just, it seems like when you have these large warehouses and, you've heard me talk about impervious surface, it kind of makes sense. It just.
Delegate Fisher, maybe you and I can bring a bill next year and I would love to co-sponsor a bill with you for getting more.
For 10 years. And it
Solar,
never happened.
so much. How come I have to do all the work? How come you're not drafting it?
Thank you.
No further comment on this one. Delegate Queen.
Okay, so I was triggered by your questioning. So I noticed in the testimony by MEA, they talked to the fact that this had some similarities to the Janie Lawton Conservation Loan Program, which includes nonprofits, businesses, and other entities like you would like. How is this bill different, or what does it expand? Can you talk to you?
That program is for conservation. I can't remember exactly what it funds, but it doesn't fund clean energy projects.
So you're adding clean energy.
Yeah.
But in your adding clean energy, you didn't want to add the businesses and other pieces that one does?
So if you look at MEA's programs, they have programs that are for small businesses. They have other programs that are like commercial.
Okay, so that's being addressed someplace else. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's it. And that concludes this bill hearing. I don't see any other witnesses testify.
Thank you very much.
For or against, and that concludes the bill hearings for today. So just a reminder to everybody, drop dead deadline for filing your bills is 5 p.m.
What?